first Moto X launched. The company says the smartphone will be assembled completely in the U.S. and users will be able to customize the hardware. Could this be the boost that Google needs, and how will it affect Apple? Spencer Annie is the deputy bureau chief with the Wall Street Journal, and Jonathan Geller is the president and editor-in-chief of Boy Genius Report. Guys, good morning to you both.
Good morning.
Jonathan, let's talk about Moto X. I mean, to some degree, you argue this is Google's attempt to justify the purchase of Motorola and really put it on the map in a smartphone way. Is it going to work?
I mean, we don't know. Motorola has never been the one to make a really amazing Android product that people kind of lusted for. They've never been able to replicate, the Samsung model. With Google, though, it's really interesting because they've, revamped their whole supply chain. They're manufacturing this in the U.S. They're spending $500 million marketing it. I mean, they're doing everything they need to do. At the end of the day, if Google can't do it, I mean, I don't know what to say about the Android ecosystem.
Yeah, that's a good point. Spencer, $500 million to market a phone is a lot of money, but we've seen big examples lately where big companies had a lot of marketing power, and it just didn't work.
Yeah, the smartphone market is really driven by two things, I would say: great products and huge marketing. And you see that with Samsung and with Apple. And the issue with Google, I think, is obviously Google is a great company. Its expertise is really in software, and it's trying to make this difficult transition to becoming a hardware company, and it's proving challenging. And so this Motorola X phone is going to be their first big sort of coming out party to prove that they can really hit the ball out of the park with hardware. And the marketing will help. Samsung spent $400 million last year on marketing their mobile devices in the U.S. So Google could outspend Samsung, which spends a lot of money. Google could outspend Samsung marketing this device potentially.
Yeah, Samsung, which is already outspending Apple on marketing, at least in the U.S. Spencer, let's talk about Apple tonight and the quarters to come. What do you think the real story is going to be regarding new products? Is this low-priced iPhone the best we're going to get for 2013?
Well, it appears that way. No one really knows. Apple's obviously very tight-lipped about its product pipeline. I think the big issue with Apple, the larger issue, is growth. The company is expected to see flat revenues this quarter, and earnings are supposed to decline. So the cheaper smartphone could be a big answer to that problem, because Apple is exposed in emerging markets. They have this single model strategy where it's a very premium priced smartphone, and it's done well in developed markets, but growth is slowing in developed markets, and more of the growth is coming from emerging markets where Samsung has a broad product lineup and they can address different price points. So I think for Apple, they need to address the lower price sector of the market, and they also need to come up with some new game-changing products.
Jonathan, Apple this fall apparently could come out with two phones, an iPhone 5S or whatever with a fingerprint ID, and then the cheaper, more colorful product as well. But it looks like this Google phone potentially could tick all of those boxes before Apple even launches its own devices. Does it need to?
I mean, I'd say no. I think that they're going to be very different devices. I think the the Motorola X is going to be more of, a customizable device, something that people really haven't done. Maybe you can pick colors, screen sizes, components, things like that. And I think it'll appeal to probably a more consumer-oriented demographic of the Android group, let's say, people who really don't want that geeky phone. I think as far as Apple's concerned, just to add on to what Spencer was saying, I don't really think they're going to be making a low-cost iPhone. If Apple does do something, it's probably going to be in the $350 to $400 price point. So more of a mid-range phone, I think we'll see from them.
Jonathan, isn't the pricing potentially very, very dangerous for Apple here? Because Google doesn't really need to make a high margin on its new flagship Moto X. It could arguably sell it at effectively a discount within the industry, and therefore grab critical mass, particularly amongst the carriers, potentially, couldn't it?
Well, you're right. Actually, they did that with the Nexus 4, which was one of their flagship phones that they made with LG, and they subsidized that around $300 or $400 per handset. So they were selling that fully unsubsidized for $299. So that's a great point. I don't think they'll go that far. I think with the Moto X, they're going to need the carrier support. There'll be a subsidy. My guess it would be $199. But also to the Apple point, yes, you're right. If they keep lowering the price and their margins come down, that's a problem. The thing that we have to remember about Apple is they have such scale. When they're making a phone that's a little bit less in terms of cost, they're going to be able to make that up in terms of volume. So I think, if they can sell 2, 3, 4 times the amount of mid-range phones as the high-end phones, that's going to be a net positive for Apple.
Yeah, you got the point about scale. Absolutely right. Spencer, Jonathan, we will see what the numbers bring this afternoon. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Up next, we'll get the latest on the Southwest Airlines Boeing 737 that crash landed at New York.